Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Darren, and in today's video, I want to talk about the possible allied races we could get in the future. And I do want to kind of have this video be specified. I feel like a lot of people are just going to talk about any race they can think of. Why can't the Hosen be part of the Horde? Why can't they join in the next allied race? Why can't we get Tuskar finally? When are Murlocs going to be playable? Now, I know there's a lot of creative ideas out there, and they're great. I don't want to knock anyone's ideas, but I just kind of want to try to ground it and be as realistic as possible. I want to take the allied races we already have and kind of going from what Blizzard did with those allied races, either the ones we can play right now or ones that are in planning, like Draenor Orcs, Dark Iron Dwarves, as well as Zandalari. Take those key concepts of the story, the origins, as well as some of the functionality of the actual characters, and kind of just come up from those points what possible allied races we could get for BFA. Now, it's no surprise that allied races are pretty exciting, and they're probably one of the biggest selling points in BFA. The fact that we have allied races even right now, a lot of people are super excited. Everybody's loving them. Nightborn, I'm a huge fan of the Nightborn. The Lightforged Draenei are awesome. Void Elves are great. Alliance got some really great racials for them. The ones that we have is the High Mountain Tauren. I'm super happy when we got them. I still want to level mine up to max level. The Zandalari, the Draenor Orcs, the Dark Iron Dwarfs, and anything in the future looks very, very, very exciting. But I think there's a few things that we can kind of figure out together. What Blizzard is kind of, how are they coming up with these allied races, and kind of what are they coming from? So let's talk about these points. How does Blizzard, in my personal opinion, decide which races could be allied races? First thing you want is functionality. You want to be able to wear armor, and for the most part, if they can be minimally altered, as in Void Elves. I mean, it's basically Blood Elf 2.0 with blue skin. There was no real a lot going on there. The hairstyles are different. You have the facial hair for the males. You have the tentacles for all their hair spots. But for the most part, they function just the same way. The animations are basically copy paste. The structure, the way they hold armor. The High Mountain Tauren got exactly the same treatment. It's just Tauren with antlers. And Lightforged Draenei are just Draenei with golden eyes and a rune over their head, and usually paler skin, unless you decide to get for a more lively looking Draenei, not the one that looks like he's been in a closet or away from the sun all their life. The Nightborn, I think, are interesting because they basically take the skeleton of an already existing race like Night Elves, but it's modified. And I on stream and in the past I compared the Nightborn versus Night Elves, and there are some differences. They're not huge. The way that they stand is slightly different. The idle animations are slightly different. The dance animations and most of the other animations, combat animations, are basically the same. But then also parts like body proportion are different. Like, they are taking an aesthetic of what Night Elves have for male and female, but they're also modifying it to a certain extent where they are different enough where you see resemblances, but you don't think, oh, that's just a Night Elf. At least I don't. So they're doing a similar thing with the Zandalari. They're taking the Night Elf, male and female skeleton, and kind of just putting tusks and all the Zandalari aspects on it. So they're reutilizing skeletons, but they also are adjusting some parts of it. So what we can take a look at is any allied races in the game right now, or any allied race that is planned to be in BFA. Those guys have a way higher chance just for functionality purposes. I mean, trying to design a Naga right now, you would have to, they don't have a skeleton that matches any race already in the game. Because of that, it doesn't have that reusability from Blizzard already established resources. It makes it that much harder to implement them. So first thing we can take a look at is reusability. Second part is the story. They said that all the allied races need to make sense lore-wise. Now, I'm a huge fan of WoW lore, and I kind of like the idea when it makes sense by lore, even though Blizzard sometimes doesn't follow their own lore. I don't want to be a snob about it, so I'm not gonna continue off on the tangent there. They have to make some sort of sense, but do they? If you take a look at some of the allied races, the High Mountain Tauren are pretty normal. They're just High Mountain Tauren that lived, and they joined the Horde because they look like Tauren. The Lightforged Draenei are pretty believable too. Even the Nightborn, because we did get introduced to Nightborn, and we not only helped them retake their city, raided their raid forever, but then you have Void Elves. And Void Elves really, you didn't see a single Void Elves except for Alaria. So Void Elves, I felt like were one of those allied races that just came out of the left field. Remember the picture when they had the Alliance allied races and then the Horde allied races? When I took a look at that image, I thought to myself that the Horde ones, alright, Nightborn, we've seen him. The Zandalari, believable because, you know, we'll be going and hanging out with the Zandalari trolls. I guess that makes sense. And then the High Mountain Tauren, all fine. Look at the Alliance. Dark Iron Dwarfs, more dwarfs. Lightforged Draenei made sense, but Void Elves came out of left field. It was basically like It was like a floating blood elf with like really short hair, really pale skin, and blue eyes. And it came just out of nowhere. I guess in the story they explained as you unlock the allied race of Void Elves, how they came into being, and kind of how they started learning the Void. But those guys came out of left field, I felt like, compared to some of the other allied races. What does this tell us? The story doesn't have to exist ahead of time. Because for Void Elves, they just built that story from scratch in Legion. Out of nowhere, just came out of left field. So story-wise, it doesn't have to have some kind of a set grounding, a set congruity. So this tells us that gotta be functional, but story is not as heavy. This kind of opens us a lot of opportunities for some of the viable allied races. I also want to take a look at the forum posts, and MMO Champion, I found as many of these as I could from everybody else who decided to take a look at all the other allied races available or possibilities of allied races. So I compiled a bunch of forum posts together to see some of the possible races that we might have, and then I'll comment on a few of them towards the very end. The Sethrak race themselves are, I feel like, in a way, functionality-wise, they're very Worgen-esque. So they have Worgen aspects to them. They are supposed to be the bad guys of the BFA. And I guess there could be a possibility these guys could maybe be an allied race, as the person suggests. You would have a lot of different armors that might even fit them. And they do have a skeleton that is reusable. The Worgen, at least that's what it looks to me. It looks like a Worgen skeleton, at least from some of the battle animations. So functionally, maybe, although I don't know how hoodies and helmets would fit on these guys. I guess they would be overblown because their head with that hood, natural hood, seems like it's a little bit big for them. I really like the combat animations. I like the combat stances. They feel like there's a bit of lore to another beast-like race of World of Warcraft characters. Something about them feeling less humanoid than we've seen in the past, like Nightborn feeling really humanoid. These guys are a lot less humanoid than what we're used to. So something about them being less humanoid makes you think that that's lessens their possibility of becoming an allied race. If they could figure out how the hoodies will look for them, then I think at that point they would have to start thinking about Naga, or try to find a way to add legs to Naga, because these guys are snakes with a snake tail. I do like the animations there. That would be kind of interesting to be a warrior of these guys or something of that sort. In the search for possible allied races, someone decided to go back to the old archives of old World of Warcraft and find the Silver Covenant allied race concepts, which think of these guys as basically high elves, but high elves that are different from blood elves, that are more jungly, more troll-like in nature. They have a lot of the body paint. They're a lot of mostly hunter tribes, I guess. It's been so long since I've seen something like that. You know, that's back from like RTS games. And of course, the person is having to kind of do their own body paint for these and hairstyles to kind of give us an idea of what they might look like. But I think that won't be impossible, because people do want high elves to come back to World of Warcraft. These guys are basically high elves, but a lot of them are very bird style, which is actually a very old school way of how elves used to be portrayed back in like Warcraft games. So like way old, like Warcraft 2 games. And I remember some of them from when I was a kid. I think that would be an interesting take instead of just high elves. It'll be Silver Covenant. They are the Rangers. They are maybe magically adept, but mostly agility based. The Hunter tribe, the Warriors, the Rogues, like maybe something very interesting there. And I feel like bringing an old school into what's already existent would be a lot easier with the community than taking something that's a Void Elf that just kind of out of the blue, out of left field into the game, even though those guys were very much welcomed by the community. Of course, everybody talked about the Volperin, the Fox people, if you haven't seen what these guys look like. Everybody's super excited about them maybe becoming an allied race. As far as I understand, they're supposed to be on the Horde starting area on the island, and they're supposed to be one of those races that's looking for help. One of those common races to the environment, a lot like how High Mountain Tauren are, because High Mountain Tauren sought help from Alliance and Horde, and yet they ended up choosing the Horde in a long run. So they picked their side. So I actually could see that. I actually could see that kind of a, I guess, realization of these guys. Plus, if you take a look at a lot of the models, they're basically a goblin model. They take on the male and the female goblin model animations. They also have a lot of backstory to them as like this really shanty, very gypsy-like creatures. And of course, everybody who is a furry or who is a really huge fan of the Worgen is also super excited about these guys. I mean, it's another short race. We have the gnomes, we have the goblins, but to add Volpera to, let's say, Alliance, because they don't have like a goblin style short guy, it'll be like the short race I think it'll be interesting. I'm open to the ideas. I really wonder how the racials would be and kind of how the story would go for them. But then again, we have Void Elves, and they kind of came out of nowhere. So I'm pretty sure Blizzard could cook up the real mean story for these guys out of nowhere. For functionality purposes, culturized humans are thin and the thick humans. You got the thin, really scrawny ones that have like the skeleton of female undead, and then the thick ones that either are the female, which is basically the same human skeleton as the human females. The male, I'm not quite sure. They look kind of Pandaren in nature. I don't think the combat animation suggests anything Pandaren about them though. But I haven't gotten, I guess, too close of a look at them, so it's really hard to tell. But I would be down with them. Again, I feel like functionality-wise, and WoW had already had a lot of pictures on how these guys would look with different gear, different haircuts, and a lot of the stuff kind of already fits in them ahead of time, because again, it's reused assets, trying to find a way to be displayed in a new light. So these guys functionally would work. Plus, it makes sense because Alliance is going to help the culture and people. Almost makes sense for them to eventually join the Alliance and be playable. I think a lot of people would like to play as that. Because then you would have a lot more customizations for humans. A lot of people on the orc side asked, oh, can we have a different kind of orcs? Hunched over orcs, straight orcs, you have the original general orcs, or the new green orcs. And here you would basically have humans with various designs. You can do the regular human, you can do the dyed human, and then you got the thick humans, and you can have options of whichever one you want to play. And it might even feel better for fantasy. Imagine seeing like a decrepit mage, just a skinny mage casting a bunch of spells, or a big old warrior, like a really big old beer gut kind of warrior. I think it'd be great. Or even a rogue, like a really skinny rogue, or anything in between. I think it would look awesome. Plus the ability for racials and the opportunities for racials will be amazing. Now I do want to touch on this real quick, and those are the possible ideas of other allied races, primarily for Alliance, because so far we have 2 for the Horde, 2 for Alliance, Dark Iron Dwarfs, Zendalari, Drenor Orcs for the Horde? What's Alliance gonna get? I feel like if we are gonna get Kulturan, bulky humans, and thin humans, it would happen probably towards the end of BFA, after the end of expansion, after we kind of helped them out. But what would the Alliance get? Because we are planning to have Drenor Orcs, and there's a lot of information on Drenor Orcs. There's mounts, there's gear, customization options, male and female, different haircuts, like all the assets are in the game. But what is Alliance getting? So some people are thinking maybe Volpera. I feel like that'll be a little early because it'll be a lot like meeting High Mountain Tauren and be like, hey, join us, and like, yes, we will. It took a whole expansion for him to join and pick a faction. Same thing for the Nightborn. Same thing for Void Elves to kind of come out of the blue. And of course the Lightforged Junai after all the threats are gone. So I feel like it's going to be something similar. It's going to be someone with patches or with big, let's say, raid tiers that people will be joining. So it's also, I think, has to be someone with a reason for it. So I'm kind of wondering what they'll give for the humans. The person wrote here, fingers are crossed for Virkul. I actually could see Virkul because they've been around forever. And what if we went to the Valajar? I mean, I guess Valajar don't really pick one faction or the other. But what if you got like the bigger, tougher humans? Already like a first version of humans to be added for the Alliance. I mean, their models do fit a lot of gear. I'm not really sure in practicality how they'll work. Because they kind of feel a lot like Naga. They feel specialized. They don't feel versatile, as a lot of the other allied races do. Somebody suggested Quillbore. That would be interesting. They are getting a model update in 8.0. Although I feel like it'll just be like getting Hogger to join the Alliance. I mean, it'll just be so different, and again, it's kind of like how we'll look at mounts, how we'll gear look at them, yada yada yada. I don't want to be that guy, but stuff like this I feel like needs to be considered, because chances are Blizzard thinks about that stuff as well. This person's expecting the pairs in an interesting way, and I think it's something worth looking at. Zendalari trolls for Dark Iron Dwarves, Drenor Orcs for fat humans, Volpera for the Horde, and thin humans. So basically I have 2 different types of humans. I don't know how to feel about that. Honestly, if they had more humans, that just sounds silly. I mean, maybe Blizzard could run out of ideas, because honestly, I can't think of anything else from here. I mean, a lot of people are going back to old school races that we have, like Jinyu, Hosen, you know, anything that's been kind of in between, and just coming up with as many ideas as they can, all the way down to Murlocs. But I feel like when we're trying to decide or figure out what allied race we could look at, I feel like it helps to be as constructive as possible, where we're just trying to ground ourselves and not grasp for straws, if you guys know what I mean. Like I was saying, after this we'll probably get Virkul, Heraldir, and old humans, Null tribes and Wildhammer dwarf. Oh, Wildhammer dwarves! I completely forgot about them. What if? Why haven't we had anything talked about Wildhammer dwarves? I mean, we are getting dwarves very, very soon, but goddamn, that'd be awesome. I looked through the rest of the forum post, and there's a lot of people coming up with a lot of ideas, but they all kind of ring along the lines of, hey, what if we could play as a White Tiger Siberian monk or a Lion Saberon warrior? And Saberon were like this cat people and warlords that we kind of did world quests for. I think they're really forgettable. But there's a lot of ideas like, oh, what is this? What is this? Can we be this ladybug? I just found this ladybug in the creek. It just feels like, okay, let's slow it down kind of deal. You know what I mean? I think that's partially why I wanted to make this video. I feel like everybody were just looking around and the nearest thing possible. And then we're like, wow, can we be the Pepsi can? Or Dr. Pepper can as an allied race? You know, it felt to me like too many people are grasping for anything they can find nearby. So I want to make a different video that more is grounded on what could be possible from previous experiences. Although we haven't had that many experiences yet with the allied races, and there's probably still a lot more to come. But so far, I'm super excited. I cannot wait. It's awesome hearing everybody in the community trying to figure out, you know, what could be viable, what could be possible, and all these discussions. But from my perspective, so far, unless Blizzard is coming up with some other new allied race, it looks like alliance are kind of short. I really can't think of anything new except for Wildhammer dwarves and thin humans. That's really about it. Thick and thin. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you guys enjoyed, go ahead and give it a like some of my videos to reach a wider audience as well as grow my channel, so it'll be very much appreciated. And if you guys enjoy this kind of videos, discussions, BFA stuff, or simply 5v5 1v1 duels, go ahead and subscribe. We put out 2 videos a day so you guys can enjoy 2 videos every single day. If you guys want to catch some of the live streams, the best way to do it is to hit the notification bell down below to be notified on every single video that goes up and every single live stream that goes live, so you guys may be able to join and participate in those live streams. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see all of you in another video.